Traditionally, bike makers have offered the full set of bells and whistles only in their larger displacement machines, which means that the low displacement ones have had to make do with lesser tech and lesser equipment. But Ducati has somewhat bucked that trend with the Multistrada 950S. Now, one big reason why we like the 1200S and the 1260S in the Multistrada family, well, apart from their engine performance of course, is for the electronics and the brilliant Skyhook suspension. Now, the Multistrada 950S also gets that very same semi-active electronic suspension along with the entire setup of the electronics that Ducati is known for. So does that mean that this is as entertaining and as exciting as the bigger one? There's just one way to find it out. It's been a few years now since we first saw this very design language on the Ducati Multistrada 1200S. But even after being close to half a decade old, the design looks so good, be it the headlamps, be it the beak, or the overall design of the fairing. Of course, this is a Ducati and they do make some of the best looking machines in the world. But at the same time, I have to say that for what is a middleweight adventure tourer, this fairing feels a little too wide and overall the motorcycle looks a little too bulky, especially in comparison to some of its newer competition. That said, the Multistrada 950's larger dimensions allow it to offer the feel of a full-bodied adventure tourer, and it looks as big as a full-sized ADV. The S looks identical to the standard 950 though, which means the badging on this bike is pretty much the only distinguishing factor. But swing a leg over and you'll instantly notice that the switchgear is the same as the bigger Multistrada, and so is the 5-inch full-color TFT display, which is a class act with its colors and sharp resolution. Build quality and fit finish levels are premium, as you would expect on a Ducati, and in that sense, the 950S is really up there with machines sitting a segment above it. One of the bike's biggest draws are its rider aids though, and the 950S packs in stuff like a 6-axis IMU. The 950S thus gets cornering ABS, cornering lights and hill hold control, but misses out on wheelie control. There's 4 riding modes including Sport, Touring, Urban and Enduro, and each of these make a big difference to the riding experience. Sport is what I stuck to for most of my time in the saddle, given its sharp throttle response, though Touring is good too, with its milder throttle response and the full performance. There's no changes to the powertrain, which means you still get the same 937cc, 113 PS and 96 Nm L-twin engine, which also powers the hypermotard 950. And that really makes you want to have some fun like this. But there's one major update on the transmission front, which is the addition of the bidirectional quick shifter, and that makes a world of difference to riding this motorcycle, especially when you're riding it fast. The Ducati Quick Shifter allows clutchless upshifts and downshifts both, but can feel a little clunky at path throttle and works best only at higher revs. Give it the beans and the smaller multi does not disappoint and can build speeds very quickly. In fact, for a middleweight touring machine, the 950 feels very sprightly, with ample performance in reserve at almost all times. The engine is very smooth and refined, which adds to the bike's touring credentials as well, and its powertrain certainly helps the 950S establish itself as a veritable mile muncher. And that's besides how much fun it can be in the hills and around corners, thanks to the eager power delivery, especially the punchy bottom end and mid-range performance. The biggest highlight on the 950S though has to be the semi-active Skyhook EVO suspension here, and that's what really makes a world of difference to the machine's handling. I have ridden the stock 950, the regular one, without this suspension, and I can tell you that this one handles so much better, feels a lot more confident despite the 19-inch front wheel. Now, it's the suspension that makes a huge difference to the way the bike goes around bends, the way it goes off-road, and overall, this is what the 950 really needed right from day one. The semi-active electronic suspension really is the star of the show here. It uses sensors at both ends of the suspension, which constantly monitor the road surface and adjust damping accordingly in real time. The suspension on the Multistrada 950S is thus way ahead of conventional damping systems, and like we have seen on the bigger Multistradas, it gives the 950S a distinct edge over its rivals. There's also a big difference between the damping in different riding modes, something you can customize through settings. Between sport and urban modes, the Multistrada 950S can thus go from proper stiff to pliant, and in fact, there were times when the difference in ride quality was so big, I could barely believe I was riding the same motorcycle. A lot of the handling characteristics are also courtesy the chassis, which Ducati has ensured complements the engine performance and excellent suspension well. So directional changes are quick, and despite a 19-inch front wheel, the 950S feels similar to road bikes. The brakes deserve a mention too, as the Multistrada 950S uses Brembo everything with 320mm twin discs at the front, and the feel and stopping power add to rider confidence big time. At 15.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom, the Multistrada 950S is expensive. But then it gets what no other motorcycle in the segment gets, which is the semi-active electronic suspension, and that makes a world of difference to this bike's handling and its comfort as well, making it a great touring machine. And all of that is besides the fact that it has one of the most comprehensive electronic suite, which also gives it an edge over the competition. Well, all said and done, this is a Ducati, it is a Multistrada, it is exciting and a lot of fun. So if you like to go touring, and if you like to munch miles and munch them really quick, this is a motorcycle that really needs to feature on your shopping list. So the Multistrada 950S is Italian. Yeah.